An American stranger at a coffee shop asked me what I do for a living, how much my flat costs, and whether I was married, all in 5 minutes. I thought she was conducting surveillance. She thought she was being friendly. Meanwhile, Laura's German colleague won't even tell her his age. Same questions, completely opposite privacy rules.
Okay, I need to hear about this coffee shop interrogation. What happened?
Right, so I'm in San Francisco for work. Grabbed coffee, sitting at a communal table. American woman sits down, says hello.
Normal so far?
Within literally 5 minutes, she's asked, what do I do? Where do I live? How much is rent there? Am I married? Do I have kids? Why not? What brought me to San Francisco?
Oh, just making friends by conducting a full census survey. Totally normal human behavior.
I felt like I was being interrogated. In Britain, you might eventually get to some of those topics with a friend, not a stranger in a coffee shop.
She was just being friendly, making conversation.
By asking about my rent and relationship status?
Yeah, because nothing says connection like finding out a stranger's housing costs within 5 minutes of meeting them. Super normal, totally not invasive at all.
It's invasive.
It's connecting!
And here we have the privacy divide in action.
Quick pause before we fully dissect each other's cultures. Huge thanks for all the topic suggestions.
You've been brilliant. Keep them coming.
What cultural mystery should we explore next?
Drop it in the comments and we promise not to ask your salary.
Or your rent? Those are normal questions. Well, rent is. Salary is where Americans suddenly remember boundaries exist.
Let's actually break this down. What questions are acceptable small talk in American culture?
Okay, so Americans typically ask, what do you do? Where are you from? Do you have kids? What brings you here? Those are all standard first conversation topics.
And none of those feel invasive to you?
Oh no, they're incredibly invasive. But we've collectively decided to pretend they're not. And now we're all stuck in this uncomfortable cycle of oversharing with strangers.
What about money questions? Like asking about rent or salary?
Okay, salary is generally off limits in most contexts. That's where Americans suddenly discover privacy exists. But rent or housing costs? That's pretty normal conversation, especially in expensive cities.
You just casually tell strangers what you pay in rent?
Yeah, because housing costs are a universal nightmare. So we bond over collective financial suffering. It's like therapy, but with less crying and more outrage about landlords.
But it's private financial information.
What would British people talk about with strangers instead?
Weather, transport delays, perhaps something neutral about the immediate environment. Nice coffee shop, isn't it?
That's it?
That's plenty. You don't need to know someone's life story to share a table.
Right, because 3 sentences about rain is definitely more meaningful than actually learning anything about each other. Very efficient. But how do you actually get to know people if you can't ask questions?
You wait for them to volunteer information. If they want you to know, they'll tell you. You don't interrogate.
We don't interrogate. We're interested. Though I'll admit, American curiosity does come with a side of none of your business. So you've got a point.
Same thing. What about your German colleague? You mentioned he won't tell you his age.
Oh, Wolfgang! We've worked together for 2 years. Lovely guy, very competent, but I know almost nothing about his personal life.
What happens when you ask?
If I ask anything personal, age, family status, where exactly he lives, weekend plans, he gives these vague, deflecting answers. I'm in my 40s. I live in the city. Had a quiet weekend.
He's maintaining boundaries.
Very firmly. German culture has this strong division between public and private life. Your colleagues don't need to know personal details.
But you work with him every day.
Doesn't matter. Work is work. Private is private. The spheres don't mix unless he chooses to mix them.
Is that just him or is it a German thing?
Very German. They value privacy intensely. Personal questions are considered rude. Your home life, your finances, your family, those are private matters.
So what do Germans talk about?
Work, current events, Hobbies in an abstract way. I enjoy hiking, not I went hiking with my wife and kids at this specific location last Sunday.
Facts without personal details.
Right! You can know about someone without knowing them personally, and that's fine. That's the boundary.
That must be hard for Americans working with Germans.
It's so hard. Americans think Germans are cold and unfriendly. Germans think Americans are intrusive and inappropriate. Everyone's judging everyone else for having different comfort zones. Classic.
What about on the flip side? Are there things Germans will discuss that Americans won't?
Oh, this is interesting. Yes.
Tell me!
Germans are much more comfortable discussing sex, bodies, nudity, things Americans get weird about.
Really?
Sauna culture in Germany. You're naked with strangers? Totally normal. Americans would die of embarrassment.
Because that's intimate, unlike asking about someone's rent, which is totally fine and normal and definitely not weird at all.
But asking about someone's rent isn't intimate.
Okay, fair point.
Germans have this attitude that bodies are natural, nothing shameful. But your salary? That's private. Americans are the opposite. Salary is private. Bodies are private.
So every culture has privacy lines. They're just drawn differently.
Right. What's private in one place is public in another. It's almost like we made all this up and then got really attached to our specific version of made-up rules.
What about Asian cultures? I feel like privacy norms are different there.
Very different, and it varies hugely by country.
How so?
Take Japan. There's intense privacy about personal feelings and problems. You don't burden others with your struggles. You maintain harmony by keeping difficulties private.
So how are you doesn't get a real answer.
Right! It's always fine or doing well, even if you're falling apart inside. Sharing problems is inappropriate unless you're very close.
What about family questions? Can you ask if someone's married or has kids?
That's tricky because it depends on context and relationship. Generally, Japanese people might share basic status, but not details. I'm married, but not about their relationship or home life.
So similar to Germans in some ways.
Similar compartmentalization, but the reasoning is different. Germans want privacy for autonomy. Japanese want privacy to maintain social harmony.
What about China? How does privacy work there?
Chinese privacy norms are so interesting because they're almost opposite to Western ones in some ways.
How?
Chinese culture is very collectivist, right? So there's less individual privacy within families and close communities. Family members might know everything about your life. Salary, relationships, problems.
Close family bonds.
But with outsiders, much more guarded. You don't share personal information until relationships are established. And even then, there's this concept of face. You don't share things that might damage your reputation.
So it's not privacy for individuality, it's privacy for reputation.
Right! You're not private because you want autonomy. You're private because disclosure could affect your standing in the community.
What happens if you ask direct personal questions in China?
Early in a relationship, you might get vague answers or deflection. But as relationships deepen, Chinese people often share more than Westerners would. Like, they might ask how much you paid for things, which Americans find rude.
Chinese people ask about money.
Among friends or established relationships, yes, it's seen as showing interest and connection. But salary specifically is still sensitive.
So many contradictions. It's almost like humans are complicated and cultural rules are arbitrary.
Every culture has them.
What about Latin American cultures? Where do they fall?
Oh, Latin American cultures tend to be much more open than Northern European or Asian cultures.
How so?
In Mexican or Colombian culture, personal questions are normal and expected. Asking about family, relationships, home life, that's showing you care about the whole person, not just their work role.
So being private would seem cold.
Right. If you're too guarded, people think you don't trust them or don't want friendship. Openness is warmth.
What kind of questions are normal there?
Are you married? How many kids? Where does your family live? Do you live with your parents? All totally normal first or second conversation topics.
Sort like Americans, but even more open.
Similar openness, but with more emphasis on family and relationships. Americans might interrogate you about your job for 10 minutes. Mexicans want to know about your mom. Different invasions of privacy, equally enthusiastic.
Different priorities.
Work versus family as identity. Do you have any experience with the Middle East? How does privacy work there?
Yeah, a little. Middle Eastern privacy is really complex because it's heavily gendered and context dependent.
Explain.
In many Middle Eastern cultures, there's this division between public and private spheres. What's appropriate in public versus what happens at home can be very different.
Public face versus private life.
And gender matters hugely. Men might be more public with certain information, women might be more private, especially about personal choices or family matters.
Protecting reputation?
Yes, and also respecting family honour. Information that seems harmless in Western cultures might be sensitive there because it reflects on the whole family.
Like what?
Relationship status, living arrangements, social activities. These can be private not just for the individual, but because they affect family standing in the community.
So privacy is communal, not individual.
In many cases, yes. You're not just protecting your privacy, you're protecting your family's reputation. Because your personal life choices are somehow everyone's business, but also supposed to be private.
Makes total sense.
What happens in professional settings? Do these privacy rules change at work?
Oh, this is where it gets really messy.
Tell me.
American workplace culture wants you to bring your whole self to work. They want to know about your life, your hobbies, your family. Team building through personal sharing.
The oversharing office.
Right, because what every workplace needs is forced emotional intimacy with people you're contractually obligated to see 40 hours a week. That definitely won't create any uncomfortable dynamics.
British and German colleagues find this horrifying. Like, why does my boss need to know about my weekend? Why are we discussing personal lives in a team meeting?
That does sound uncomfortable. And then you have cultures where work-life separation is sacred. Japanese colleagues might never mention their spouse or kids at work. It's completely separate.
How do you do team building without personal sharing?
Through the work itself. Collaboration, shared goals, professional respect. You don't need to know someone's life story to work well with them.
Americans would find that distant.
We do. We want emotional connection, personal bonds. We're not just colleagues, we're friends. Which is a lie we tell ourselves to make 40-hour weeks more bearable. But sure.
Which Germans find exhausting.
Completely.
What about social media? Has that changed privacy norms?
Social media has made everything more complicated.
Yes, because now privacy isn't just about what you share in person, it's about what you post online.
Americans post everything. Vacation photos, family pics, political opinions, what they ate for lunch. The feed is their life.
Very public living.
We've decided that our entire lives should be performative content for an audience of acquaintances and strangers. It's totally healthy and normal. Europeans are more selective. Germans especially. Many don't use real names on social media or keep profiles very locked down. I wonder about younger generations. How are they handling these shifting boundaries?
I think there's a global youth culture emerging that's more open, but it's complicated.
Yeah, young people everywhere use Instagram and TikTok. But what they share still varies by culture. Like, Japanese youth might post a lot, but carefully curate to maintain certain image. American youth post more candidly. European youth might be somewhere in between.
What about the question of salary transparency? That seems to be changing.
Ugh, this is such a hot topic right now.
How so?
Traditionally, Americans don't discuss salary with colleagues. It's considered private, even taboo. But there's a growing movement for transparency.
Especially among younger workers.
Right. The argument is that salary secrecy benefits employers, allows pay discrimination. If people shared salaries openly, Pay inequities would be obvious.
But that requires overcoming huge cultural taboos.
And not everyone's comfortable with it. Older generations especially find it deeply inappropriate. God forbid we acknowledge that some people make more money than others for the same work. Better to keep that secret. What about other cultures?
Scandinavian countries actually have public tax records. Anyone can look up what you earn.
That's so invasive.
They see it as transparency and equality. Can't have hidden wealth or pay discrimination if everything's public.
I would die if my neighbors could look up my salary.
Classic American priorities. We'll tell strangers our rent, but salary is where we draw the line. Makes perfect sense.
What's the actual advice here? How do you navigate privacy across cultures?
I think the key is paying attention to how much others are sharing.
Right. If someone's answering your questions with vague deflection, that's your cue to back off.
And don't take it personally. They're not being cold. They're maintaining boundaries that are normal in their culture. On the flip side, if you're more private and someone's asking questions, you can politely deflect. I prefer to keep that private. Is usually respected.
Though Americans might probe a bit more because we're not used to those boundaries and we're deeply uncomfortable with silence. We're persistent.
You're nosy.
We're interested in people.
Right, and that interest definitely needs to include financial details and relationship status within 5 minutes of meeting someone.
Different values, same behaviors.
What if you're hiring or managing people from different cultures?
Be aware that personal sharing isn't universal. Team building through personal disclosure might alienate some people.
Yeah, find ways to build relationships that don't require oversharing. Professional respect can be enough.
And don't assume someone's cold or unfriendly just because they're private. They might be being perfectly warm by their cultural standards.
It's all about adjusting expectations.
And respecting boundaries even when you don't understand them. Which is hard for Americans, because we think everyone should be as open as we are. But we're working on it.
Thanks for joining us on the Etiquette Enigma. Remember, privacy isn't universal. What's friendly curiosity in one culture is invasive interrogation in another. So maybe don't ask strangers in German coffee shops about their rent.
And don't be surprised when Americans ask your entire life story in 5 minutes. We're just friendly and also deeply uncomfortable with appropriate boundaries.
You're just nosy.
But seriously, pay attention to people's comfort levels and adjust accordingly. Respect boundaries even when they seem strange to you. We're all just trying to connect while maintaining whatever privacy feels right, which is apparently different for everyone.
And that's fine, probably. See you next episode, where we'll respectfully not ask about your personal life.
Unless you're American, then tell us everything. We're listening.